start, the last time I stood here, I promised the supporters that we'd win the championship, we did. So I don't expect any predictions tonight. I'm pleased to talk to you because it is a while ago since I talked to any Bradford Northern supporters. I spoke to Halifax supporters a few weeks ago, and I suppose I'm lucky to be here. It was so horrendous, the things that I did. But anyway, that's all with now, hopefully. I don't know really what you want me to speak about this evening, but I was asked to tell you a bit about myself. Well, let me go back, it won't take me long really, but let me go back a long time. I was born in a village called Charleston. Now, I don't know whether you know where Charleston is, but it's in a triangle of towns, Featherstone, Castleford and Wakefield. And in that village, when I was a youngster, and I can remember being 6 years of age. I'll tell you for why later on, but I can remember being 6 years of age. And the only ambition I had was to play for Charleston Rovers. That's the team at the top of our street. There's a wall all the length of Charleston Rugby Field. There's the pub at one end where we used to get sick in their yard, and the club at the other. And my dad was probably the third most important man in the village, because next to the doctor and the headmaster of the local school, my dad was steward of Charleston Working Men's Club. I was born into a rugby family. I have two famous brothers. I have one famous brother, our Neil, and when he went into the Hall of Fame last year, the 10th player in the whole of Rugby League history to go into the Hall of Fame. David Oxford probably put his record of point scoring into perspective, because he said of Martin Afire, who had just scored 40 tries, or was it 50 in his first season, that if Martin Afire scores 50 tries a season, for the next 20 years, he will be halfway to Neil Fox's record. So there is nobody ever again in the history of this game, or in the future of this game, that will score as many points as our Neil. There is no one, so I don't talk about our Neil. But our Don, he's probably what we call the most infamous rugby player of all time. Because on that fabulous afternoon when Leeds played Wakefield Trinity in that water splash final, if you've never seen it, you want to get a video of that, because it's absolutely magic is the splashing and all the lads charging about and all that water. And when Ardon missed the goal that would have won them the match and sank on one knee with his head between his hands, and Eddie Wayman issued those immortal words, "Poor lad." You've never seen the letters that Ardon had from all over the world, and the Queen mentioned it at our Neil's inauguration when he got the OBE. The Queen mentioned it some years later. And I'll never forget that David Coleman once interviewed Fenwick, the Welsh captain, some 16 years after this event, and Fenwick kicked a goal for Wales at Twickenham to win the match in the last minute. And David Coleman after the match said, "What were you thinking about with that goal kick under the post in the last minute?" And Steve Fenwick, he said, "Don Fox was in that goal at Glenwood." Now here we are, the Welsh international captain and goal kicker, who could only remember because he was in his sports 16 years later. And that's the way it's been. I'm grateful for that mammoth night of television when we were selecting the sports personality of the year, and the BBC showed those 5 hours of sport, and they showed that 30 seconds of Ardon missing that kick at Wembley. Because everybody thinks that were me. And if that's my only claim to fame, let me tell you, I'll take credit for missing it. Because when I was a kid, all we had were dreams. And I've won the cup at Wembley for my team. I beat Wigan and all the big teams, sidestepping way through all these star players and going over the corner flag. And I'll never forget it, because it was that we got a hailstorm just as I brought the ball back over 25 line, and we're still a point behind. And I kicked the goal to win the match, and then I woke up. That's the nearest I've ever been to being, if you like, a star. Because I'm the world's greatest admirer of sportsmen. We are lucky today that we can look at television, we can see all the great sportsmen in any sport play this wonderful and magnificent game. And I nearly brought it there, I didn't want to bring it, but I went to Arneil's last Christmas, and Arneil's just moved into a new house. It's about as big as this room. And around he's got cabinets like this on his walls, and memorabilia from all over the world, because he's played in nearly every country where rugby league is played, and where rugby league isn't played, he's played. And he's got all these awards and caps, international caps and medals. And I've got a medal because, and I've got a medal I'm proud of, because I played in a Yorkshire Junior Cup final as an amateur at 15 years of age. I'd just left school for Charleston Rovers at against Middleton. We lost, but I've got a Yorkshire Junior Cup medal. And in 1933, my dad got a Yorkshire Junior Cup medal playing with Normanton as an amateur. And so me and my dad got 2 light medals, and our Don Arneil ain't got one of them. But I never won a medal as a player, and I played for 14 years as a pro. And as one lad said to me when I took Featherstone in 71, and I got all the lads crouched down, they're all knelt down on a very murky January evening when I took them over, and I wanted to talk to them, I'd tell them what we were going to do and what we weren't going to do, and they're all looking around because there were only 2 or 3 lads knew me. They knew I'd done Arneil, but they didn't know much about me. And I remember when I was telling them what we were going to do, and this one lad from back, when I said I played 14 years as a pro, he says, aye, and plenty of 18 football and all. I said, yes, young fella, and that's where they're heading if they don't keep their mouth shut. And 18 months later, this same lad went to Blackpool, beat Blackpool, but at Blackpool, we're on his way in a good cup run, and he come to me and says, does you remember that first meet that took over? And they got us all crouched down, and they're telling us the history, what they've done 14 years ago, never. Aye. He says, I know who that shouted out from back of the right with the roads in. He didn't think I knew it was. But my main aim, called claim to fame, is the fact that I know all my players. It doesn't take me long, it takes me a little while to get to know a lot of the younger lads, because at the moment I haven't had time to deal with the younger lads. But I remember when I started with Featherstone, I not only coached the first team and the A team and the coach, that 2 years up here at Bradford Northern, I remember distinctly when Cyril Kellett left us. Cyril was becoming ill then, we didn't really know what was happening to Cyril. And for 2 years I coached both the first team and the A team, solidly. And in the A team, we went to Old Kingston in the final, and we got a runners-up medal. And it's remarkable because the young fella that nearly pinched the match for us in that A team game, he happens to be the referee for this Sunday's match, and we had him against Hull, and he didn't referee so well. I think he was trying his best not to bend Bradford Northern way, but how he can referee a match of such importance, not long being removed from Bradford's register, I will never know. So that might be one thought to think about as the match is progressing next Sunday. Nevertheless, I've had a long and distinguished career as a coach. I've coached some great clubs. I've won every trophy there is to win, to play for in rugby league. Sorry, let me clarify that. Of the teams that I have coached, I've won every trophy there is to play for in rugby league football. And I will forever be grateful, and I always declare it publicly, for all them lads that played for me, that give me the opportunity that I never had as a player of just sharing in some of the joys of winning major trophies. And as I said, the first time I went to Wembley was in 1950 as a schoolboy, and I saw one of my favourite players there, a lad called Willie Horne, who was vice captain of Great Britain, played in the Great 46 Tour, and was a great player for Barrow, and he was on the losing side, and 3 years later I made my debut against him. Now, I'd like to tell you about my debut match simply because a player never forgets the first game he ever plays for the first team when he's selected. Some lads might wait years, but if it comes, it's a joyous moment and he'll never forget it. Now mine came three weeks after I'd signed for Featherstone Rovers. Eric Batten, who you all know well, or the older people here know very well, was my first coach, and Eric was the coach at Featherstone Rovers. And 3 weeks after I'd been signed on, he said to me, he said, Foxy, you're going to make your debut in the first team next week. Now, to make your debut at 18 in the 50s, when I believe that all the greatest players that ever played rugby league football, in mass, the most of the great players, not everyone, played in the 50s. Some played a little bit earlier that I was privileged to see in the 40s, some in the 50s and the 60s, and that for me, after what we call the Great World War, was the greatest time for rugby league football when everybody played rugby league football. I was going to make my debut against this magical man, Willie Horne, And I hadn't told Eric this that I'd seen him, and he was a bit of a hero of mine, but he said, he said, look, not only are you playing and making your debut, you will be instrumental in us winning the match. Now can you imagine this 6-year-old from Charleston, who only ever wanted to play for Charleston Rovers, was going to play in the big time at 18 as a kid, in the forwards. Youngsters didn't play in the forwards in them days. You've got to be 27 before you could play in forwards, that's when you were big and strong enough. But I was going to play and I was going to win the match. Now can you imagine what I felt like that week? Now today, let me just tell you one thing that I am particularly annoyed about as much as anything. Everybody keeps telling me that our players are not as fit as, for example, the Australians. Now me, at 18 years of age, I was fit enough and ready to fight for the heavyweight championship of the world. That's how fit I was. The fact that I couldn't pass my medical and I didn't have to do it, by the way. But I trained every day. I trained every day that week. And Barrow was a 7-hour journey. And before we set off to Barrow, I went for a run around Charleston Common and Charleston Dam, got on my bicycle with Ardon, and we bicycled to Featherstone to catch the bus to go to Barrow at 7 o'clock in the morning, because it was a 7-hour journey. I was going to Eric Batten all that week, saying to Eric, you must have a plan if I'm going to be instrumental in the match. Will you tell me what it is, and I can think about it? And I lost half a stone on the bus ride, going up and down the bus asking him the same question. He said, don't worry Peter, there's plenty of time. Now 2 minutes before we went out at Barrow, Eric came to me in the corner of the dressing room. He said, now listen, this is the plan. They have a stand-up half called Willie Horn, vice captain of Great Britain, stand-up half with me on the Australian tour in 46, and he said he mesmerised the Australians with his swerve, sidestep, handoff, goal kicking, punt kicking, grubber kicking, and I'm thinking, he's not a bad player, isn't this way? But what is the plan? And he said, listen, summer rugby, 14.5 stone that can run, terrific tackler, round the blind side at the first scrum, behind Willie Horn, go for him, and crack him as hard as I can. Now I was a coach's dream. First scrum, round the blind side, summer rugby, I flew at Willie Horn. 20 yards from him, I'm going like a little hurricane. 10 yards from him, my feet left the ground. I hurtled at Willie Horn's head. Zoom! Missed him with that much. Bang, 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 summer rugby, bruised thigh, grey shoulder. Cut a long story short, I tried 3 further times for Willie Horn in that first quarter. And on the 4th occasion, I crawled to the touchline side. I says, Eric, if you don't change this plan, I think that we're going to get beat. Incidentally, that was the day that I decided that I was going to be a coach. I just tell you one thing. I am pleased that my coaching days are not over yet, for a little while yet. I always encourage players and tell them, however old you are, don't let anybody retire you. You decide when you retire, and for goodness sake, play as long as you can, and your coach or your team has room for you. I'm very pleased that 2 lads that played for me in my early days are still playing to this day in Jeff Gratian and Graham Idle. And there is no return once you retire from playing the game. What you call your glory days of being involved and being the star of the show, getting the man of the match award, going up for being the player of the year, and just think, being the players' player of the year. When all the colleagues that play with you vote you the best player in their team the whole of that year. Can you imagine what an honour that can be? And I don't care what you play. I don't care if it's tiddlywinks, if you are the best and you've competed with everybody else and you've beaten them and you've deserved that award. The only thing I would say to them guys that come up with these magnificent prizes, never forget all the people that helped you become the star of the show and to get this accolade, because there's millions of us would love to be in your shoes. And for all you millions that haven't done that and maybe never will, don't worry, because you're in good company, you're in mine. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Peter. Now, Peter's kindly offered to answer some questions that have been set by the audience beforehand, which would make it a lot easier rather than people shouting from the audience and so on and so forth. So I have a few questions here, Peter, for you, and I'll go through one or two parrot fashion, because one or two may just be yes, and some might be no, and others might require a little bit of elaboration. All right, so the first questions were asked by Mr. Jack Wardman, Jonathan Wales, Helen Waterson and Company, I presume there's a few of you, and Emma Sunderland. Given the club's present financial position, who are you looking to buy to strengthen the squad, presumably? And that's if they are available.
Well, quite honestly, I don't know the club's financial position because the chairman and his directors don't tell me. Well, they don't tell me the details of it clearly. It is nice when you can join a club and there is what we call ready money available to buy players. There is one thing, whether you've got money or you haven't got money. I've never had a lot of money to spend, and I've never spent a lot of money. Unless we've made it beforehand, we've exchanged players and such as that and gathered money in to buy other players. And I don't need that much money to what I call buy all the top stars, because I don't want to buy all the top stars in the game, because they don't respond like what I call, you've got to have a mixture in your team. As you know, you can have half a dozen stars, the people that can polish, finish a game off or win you a game when things aren't going so well, they can do it on their own bat. It's nice to have a few players of that calibre in your side, but the rest of the lads have got to work. You've got to have workers and grafters and true professionals, you know, that will put up with a lot of things to let the stars be the stars, to let the team get success. So there is one thing that I've known: if a player becomes available and is a player that you've wanted or you want, and it's important that you have a player like that in your team, that if you don't get him that first time, it is likely you will never get him. And that is the critical thing, that if a man becomes available and you can get him, then get him at that time. But yeah, the finance of the club is clearly in the director's hands, and I'm sure they'll find the money whenever they can.
Thank you. Does that answer your questions? Jack? Yeah? Yeah? Just a quick one, because it was all part of the same question. Supposing you had £500,000 to spend right now, how would you spend it? Presumably on players.
Well, it's who is there to buy at the moment? You see, with the contract system now, it's stopped the movement of players, because players now can only move in what they call, in the contract system, it's encouraged very, very greatly, the system, that it was supposed to replace what we call backhanders. Because only can you go and tempt a player and tell him what you'll pay him, and to tell him to get unrest with his own club and come on the transfer list, then you can go in and buy him and perhaps go to the tribunal if you can't agree a price. But players are moving now only when they've been told to stop out of the game and demand bigger fees anywhere. And I'm all against that. I think the contract system will cripple rugby league football. I think it's going to do with this secret meeting we've had last week with all these first division clubs, etc. I know I'm getting into another thing, but it's...
there isn't a question about the secret meeting, but can you tell us?
Well, all the first division clubs apparently, and two of the second division, had a meeting to decide how in the 90s the game will be run. Because they're not happy with the wag of the rugby league, the tail of the dog as it were, dictating to the top clubs. What they always forget is, those that are at the top one year may not be at the top another year. And clubs' fortunes change, but the law with those clubs that can be successful because of the setup that they've got anyway. But it's certainly against all the ramifications of what rugby league football is about, the cartel of rugby league football. They want expansion. I think they've tried to expand too fast. But if you go to rugby league headquarters, I don't think you'll catch the hierarchy in. They'll be flying around the world. They'll be in Bermuda and Japan and Malaysia and Australia and New Zealand. And, I was up there this week and two of them were on a trip overseas, so unfortunately for me, rugby league is for the elitists, and they're the people that are doing well, and they're the only people that are interested in, and it's very unfortunate, very unfortunate. But if I had £500,000 to spend at the moment, I should probably have to go to a club and ask them up front, would they sell certain players? I can't tell you the players that I would go for because it's unfair on the own players. And so I've got to wait to see who becomes available. All I can say is we would like to strengthen the side because we're short of players. And my substitutes for the cup tie on Sunday and my reserve lads, the one or two lads that we've carried as spare players in case any pitfalls on the way there, will be playing in the 18 tomorrow, and that's how hard up we are for players.
Okay, thank you, Peter. The next question, which just moves away from that, but concerning players again. If Roy Powell is signed, is he the right man for the job? Second part of the question, if so, how do you rate him as a ball player? And 3, what sort of impact will he have? And this is from Colin Miller, M. Ralton, Ian Brook, and a Mr. Hurst.
Well, I'll start with the middle question. Roy Powell, whoever posed the question, if he is a Bradford Northern supporter, should know that Roy Powell is not a ball player. So the people who put the question have a little bit to learn about rugby league football. If they talk to me more often, they might learn something. Secondly, Roy Powell will be a very, very good acquisition for Bradford Northern because Roy Powell will give us 2 or 3 years service as a second row forward before I put him into the position that I think would suit him best, and which I wanted to buy for Featherstone last year to replace Jeff Gratian. That is number 8. And I think that Roy Powell's the type of player that he will tackle forever. He'll give you 30, 40 tackles a match. He will take the ball on when everybody else has had enough. And he's a very nice lad. He's a great lad to have in your team. Not a spectacular player, not a ball running forward of any description. His main assets are defensive, but he will take the ball up and be a useful acquisition to the club. Have I missed anything else?
No, I think that about covers it really. You've actually said what sort of impact he will make as well, but does that cover your questions, folks? There's no hands going up, so I presume it does. The next question then, your thoughts on proposed move at Denali Parade? And that's from Andy Williams, presumably not the singer, Peter Asquith, Ian Brook again, and Jill.
Well, before I answer that question, I'll answer that question directly from my viewpoint alone as an individual person. If this stadium at Odsal, which has been talked about now, and I came to the first floodlit internationally, I think it was England versus, or was it Great Britain versus other nationalities? Trevor might enlighten us on this, but it was floodlit with my brother played, Don Fox played scrum half with Holiday. And I saw that and I thought it magnificent. And I was in a great match when there were, I don't know how many spectators here, on days before the police said you could only have 10,000 in the ground. If this stadium had been developed through those years, if this stadium now was developed with stands and facilities, that's with respect to what you've done in here, and all this complex was pulled down and they built brand new offices, brand new gymnasiums and supporters clubs and bars and everything else, and we had covered accommodation. This would make it more compact, of course. We wouldn't need all this room for spectators. We'd have to have the stands and everything else done. So if anybody's got about £30 million, and we could do that, there is no question where I'd stay. There is no question where I, because I'm a traditionalist at heart anyway. But looking at the more practical events that have moved along with football, there is no question that I think it would benefit us considerably to move to Ballyparade, providing the terms and conditions, which I'm sure the directors are very able to negotiate on our behalf, that would be the best move to a more compact ground with facilities like they've got. So I don't see any alternative but to move to Ballyparade. This is my personal opinion again, don't forget. There's no option. There is no sensible or useful options open. And anybody that says there is either a dreamer or a non-practical person, because you've got to be sensible and practicable. And all that you've got in your heart should be put to one side. And don't operate with your heart. Operate with your head. Because I'm sorry, rugby league football is a business, and without the development of the ground, which I don't suppose anyone is going to do, there is no alternative for us in the future but to move to a more compact ground. And believe me, I'll tell you, if we did, and we've got the right financial resources behind us, I can tell you Bradford Northern could be one of the great sides in the game again. Make no mistake about it.
Does that answer the question?
But none of you agree.
There's one hand going up there. Yes.
Peter, are you saying that if we stop it, we won't become a great side?
Yes. I'll tell you for why, if you like. Can't get enough people to come. Because I don't like coming up here on these muddy, wet, cold, snowy evenings, and the players don't. We're frozen daft training. It's absolutely horrendous. We can't go on the field if it's wet. We can't get the lights on. It's costing the council a hell of a lot of money. We just had a lecture about that. We can't turn the floodlights on at 6 o'clock. We've got to turn them on at 7. There's so many restrictions. I can't answer all your questions regarding that because I'm not in the know. But what I'm saying is, there's nobody going to watch rugby league football. I played at Featherstone Rovers in the early 50s when there were 16,000 spectators in the ground, and it were throwing it down with rain and whole of the visitors. I only tell you that because I can tell you I kicked a goal from the touchline side, uphill, against the wind and rain, that won us the match. But yes, I thought I'd get that ending.
Yes, put that in, Peter.
But there is nobody will come and watch up here. All my friends don't want to come to Bradford Northern to watch us play.
Next question. Yes, sir.
I went to watch the Castleford Bradford Northern match of the year, and to me, I thought the ground was dangerous because Craig Richards got pushed into touch on the away from the stand side, and there was only about 5 or 6 foot of out of play area. I would have thought the ground would have been big enough for people like Craig and that running at speed to be tackled hard by somebody like Crooksy from Castleford and knocked out of the pitch.
If I was as big as Craig, or if I had been as big as Craig Richards, there is no one would have knocked me out at touchline.
Good answer. Yes, yes, dear.
You said that if we go to have a parade, that we would probably have a good team, a winning team.
No. What I said, the potential is there because we could rake in the finance. We could have sponsorship. We'd get more people undercover, and more people would like to see us. And as we develop and bring more money in, we can challenge to sign some of the better players or the best players in the game, and the team would benefit, and everything would roll from there on in.
But we still won't get any big matches there because they've only got a crowd limit of 14,000.
I'm not bothered. I'm not always bothered about big matches there. I'm not bothered. Every week's a big match for me watching Bradford Northern. I'm only interested in Bradford Northern. I'm not bothered at anybody else. I'm a bit selfish in the sense that all I do, because I'm employed by one club, I give my heart and my head to this club. I'm not interested in any big matches. Do they bring big matches here?
No. Does that answer your question? Anybody else? In the audience? I'll see some more hands. Yes, sir.
Why did you leave Featherstone Rovers to come to Bradford?
And that's not really part of the question, though, is it? We've got a question like that later on, so I'll ask that later on. Okay. Yes. All right. We were talking about Valley Parade. Any more on Valley Parade? Yes, sir.
The capacity, if we became a good club, there'd be people locked out.
I'd welcome that.
Not for them.
I'd welcome that, but I think we're a long way from that position, and if that was the case, I'm sure we could build another stand at Bradford Park Avenue.
No.
We couldn't.
Bradford Park Avenue.
Sorry, that takes me back to another thing.
That's another question. Yeah.
If I'd have been here many years ago, Bradford Northern would have been playing at Park Avenue.
Yes.
If I had anything to do with it.
Yeah. No, sir. Any more questions before we finish this? Yeah? Any more questions? Right, sir, just have your last question.
Why not demolish City Hall and bring them here?
Why not demolish City Hall?
Well, I'm not a citizen of Bradford. I'd hate to tell Bradford people what to do with the City Hall or anything else. What I will say, if City Hall will support and back this club, I will promise them that we will bring some success to this city of Bradford. Because we've done it before, we could do it again with the right support.
Yeah. I'll go into that. Right, that finishes that one. Let's get a light-hearted subject. What do you think of referees?
Referees are no different to what they were when I played. They are no different to what they were when I started coaching. It's just that the rules they've had to contend with, the changes in the game, and unfortunately the referees have gone the same way as all the clubs and players. The essence has been on fitness. So he's got his referees, the referees control, he's got his referees running around and mountaineering and having heart attacks, trying to get fit. Men of 35 and 40 years of age, when it's impossible for them ever to be as fit as they were when they were 19 and 20, just like players. Instead of concentrating on what I call the ethics, the morality and the control of the game, and getting to know that they are players, not school children, that they're refereeing. And that is the only trouble with referees. They're not educated to what we call, they are. Man management is the in word in rugby league. Man management. Referees had the first man management course 2 years ago at Written College one weekend when I went to educate them. On man management, not on rugby, on man management. So you can see how far we are behind in what we call modern techniques in the game. It's unbelievable. But referees, good and bad, they all make mistakes. The only thing that is wrong, there is no redress against a referee making errors and mistakes. And that is another thing that's wrong. There should be open discussion on referees like they are on players and on coaches and on directors who you've got to have, if players can be sent off by video, referees must be openly criticised on mistakes they make on video as well, and it's got to be open.
Yeah, I agree there. The other part of the question was, why do you think when a ref decides that a scrum has been fed legally throughout the game, somebody decides that it's then illegal to feed the scrum?
Well, let me tell you something you possibly don't know because you haven't been educated into it, but 2 or 3 years ago we have coaches' conferences. Fred Lindop chairs the meeting and he wants to know the coaches' criticisms of referees like you're doing here tonight, asking questions about them. The coaches ask questions and Lindop answered them all. Now we had one 3 years ago, we decided on the scrum because everybody said that scrums were rubbish and a mess. We, all the coaches in the league decided unanimously, one or two of them didn't agree with it entirely, but you go along with the majority, that the feeding of the scrum would go like this, and we formed scrimmages in the hall like this, and showed people what was wrong with the scrums. We all agreed, that all coaches, former experienced players, and we all had as little say, and we agreed that the ball would be, that the head ball goes to the attacking or non-offending side. The ball, therefore, you're not going to get a scrum half on one side, going to put the ball to the feet of the opposing hooker. So it was agreed that the offending side would lose the ball from this scrimmage, from the next scrimmage if they offended. They wouldn't be allowed to get the ball unless they could just push the opposition off the ball. So it went like this, the ball to be put to the hooker's foot, his own hooker's foot. If the other hooker, who thought he was clever, struck for that ball, do you think he could get it fairly? Answer me the question.
No.
Right. Therefore he had to cheat to get it. And we decided we didn't want him to cheat. So if he struck for the ball prematurely, before the ball was put in, and caused the scrum to be made a mess, he would be penalised. So you didn't have to get the ball, so you were guaranteed your own put-in. To make the game more continuity in the game and to get the ball into play faster. Because there's no interest in a scrum going down and pushing and towing for about 2 or 3 minutes to decide who's going to get the ball when it's not a fair contest anyway. That was decided. Unfortunately, you don't get all the referees who are as knowledgeable as others, who see the rule the same, so they interpret it in their way, and we don't get uniformity. That is the controller of referees' job with his referees. He still hasn't got it right, and I don't think he ever will. But that's the reason the scrums, the ball is fed. Now, if a scrum half puts the ball behind the second row to the loose forward, he can get penalised. So a scrum half is allowed to feed the ball to his hooker's foot. To his hooker's foot. Occasionally might slip it behind. We can let it go because the ball is out quick and play goes on. But now, all the people, like the spectators, who complained about the mess of a scrum, and we wanted to put it right, now we've put it right, you're not happy because we've got it right. So who can win with the rules and laws of the game? You don't like it when it's there, you don't like it now we've altered it. But the point is, nobody has come above board and said, because at rugby union that's exactly what's done, the ball is fed to his hooker's foot. The other hooker does not strike for the ball. But if they push him off it, they're allowed to get it. One coach did object to the rule, David Hobbs, because he thought he was skilled and all then, he got a big bat that could push him off the ball. But as I reminded him at the time, I know what you're thinking, David, and you've lost an advantage because of your big pack, but remember, you cannot push until the ball is in the scrum. So there's no way you're going to win it if you push fairly, but if you push beforehand, you're breaking the law, so you're going to get penalised. So we all agreed that would be the rule. Unfortunately, when you're going into loose forward feet, then the scrum half should be penalised, because it doesn't look right. And we only did it because of television. So if there's no question on television, we need television. We have to make the game attractive for people to watch that are not involved like you are, and that are not as expert as you are, and don't understand it like you do. So please, you specialists in the audience, don't ask silly questions. Not from now on in.
Right, thank you, Peter. The next question then from P. Corbridge, and I think that's that gentleman over there. Why did you become coach at Bradford Northern again?
Well, I've never gone anywhere where I wasn't asked to go. So I was asked to go to Bradford Northern.
Okay.
Good answer. Excellent. Thank you. And now we're pleased. Right, the next question is from Steve Sharp. How big a squad do you think you or we need to be able to compete with the best?
I don't believe in squads, only for what I call representative games. And I said that 19 players were required. So that's the 13 that are actually going to be playing. The two substitutes, in our game, two substitutes that you select. One is usually a back, one is usually a forward. But if you've got what we call utility men, you can carry two of the same, depending where your strengths lie. For example, we can carry two forward, because we could always put Paul Medley into the centre, or if we had to do, if we didn't have sufficient players. You can all do things like that. But I also believe that you should have a back and a forward as substitute, and then 4 extra players. A specialist half-back, a specialist back row forward, and then either a specialist centre and a utility man, or 2 utility men, i.e. men like Graham Steadman that can play just about any position in the backs. So 19 players is really what you want to have a strong team. But of course, when you're talking about a squad, I believe the rest of the players have got to be playing to keep fit. And they've got to play 18 football because there's no other game to play. So I like my lads to have a game every week if I can, unless clear of injuries, and then you have to save 1 or 2 players. But 19 players of top class quality is needed to carry it through a season, plus what I call 3 or 4 young players that's coming on to them. You can give them matches to from time to time and give them experience in the big time and bring them on gradually and until they're pushing for a place in the first team. And the only way a young player can get into my first team is by performing at top level in the 18. In other words, week after week he's starting and he's shining. And if he pushes it, and if he does that, then I've got to see him, and I've got to give the lad a chance. And when he comes into the first team, he's got to take the chance. And if he does take the chance, he'll stay in. If he doesn't quite take the chance, it's because he requires a bit more experience, so we'll put him back, and we expect him to develop from there and become better. But unfortunately, I'm not talking about Bradford at this moment, unfortunately my experience is that when a young fella's had a little bit of experience, and he goes back into the 18, like being in the first team, he gets a bit of a chip on his shoulder, a lot of them do, and think he's a right to be in the first team all the times. And there are other circumstances that denote he can't be in the team at any particular time. All I can do is explain it to him and try to make him understand. Now if he doesn't understand, then with 2 choices. he has to leave. If he doesn't accept, he has to leave. And I will help him leave.
Right. I think that probably answers the question. A question from Paul Cannon. What do you think of the recent jailing of the Clayton amateur rugby league player?
Don't know the circumstance, only what I read in the papers. And I don't believe everything that I read in the papers. So I just couldn't comment. But certainly this will definitely come into rugby league football. That if there's malicious intent to maim or damage, that then civil claims can be taken out against anybody in any sphere of capacity. So rugby league football is not isolated from what I call a civil insurance claim. If a man wants to take one out.
Okay, that answers the question. Mr. Barrett, or Mrs. Barrett, why is there a lack of support play? Do you think we need more movement off the ball? I presume she's talking about Northern, or he's talking about Northern.
I can't answer that question because the only team, whoever the coach has been, whoever the players have been, have always played what we call support type of rugby. That's St Helens. Over the years, for generations, they've played that game, no matter who the coaches or who the players are. And I thought, I'd love to sign all these players that can play this rugby, this support player rugby, running and passing, keeping what we call keeping the ball alive. Believe me, I have no answer to it. And I don't think anybody else has in rugby league football, as all the teams will be playing it, because we know it can be successful. The thing I will tell you, that when you go to any club, you have got the players at that club that you've got. What assets or attributes they have, you cannot change. All you can do is work strategies out to make the best of those individual abilities that those players have, and try to get them to play a style of play which suits the skills that the players have. And then slowly but surely you can bring certain players in to change that, but you can't make an overall change. You can't wave a wand and make that play such. I'll give you an example. When I was here with Bradford Northern, we had the reputation of being a hard forward tackling side. Yes, I brought one man I brought to Bradford Northern that made men tackle by example that had never tackled before. And I'll name him, Colin Forsyth, never tackled in a million years until Jimmy Thompson played alongside him, and Thompson made him tackle. They said we were a defensive coach of 5 of our 3 quarters. And 5 of my 3 quarters, Featherstone before me, the first spell, Featherstone before me, 5 of my 3 quarters were all in double figures in the try-scoring lists. 5, not only the 4 3 quarters, but my reserve, my substitute, were all in double figures of try-scoring. We haven't got anybody in, have we yet? Mice, we haven't had a great season, but I'm talking about having good seasons. And I was still noted as a forward-orientated coach, a defensive-type coach. Yet no, and I can't let everybody think that. Even the supporters believed it. All our supporters believed that. I kept learning to believe because opposition did it, we kept winning. So I didn't care, they're watching me forward, that busy me forward, but our backs kept nipping in for a try to. So it didn't bother me at all. But there's no way a coach can get his players what we call supporting the ball at all times. So what you have to have is control. You have to have control of the game. If you haven't got that type of play, you can't let, for example, 1 or 2 of my players had a rollicking this week for doing things that I've told them they must not do. Well, I'll tell you what he's not in, is it Paul Medley? He's not in, Paul Medley. 10 yards from the line, Paul Medley with 2 men outside him, kicked the ball straight into the opposition's hands. I told him he must never, ever do that again. Was I right? Now what I'm trying to emphasise is some players have certain skills, some players haven't the skills, and when panic sets in, players that can't kick will kick. I'll give another lad a rollicking tonight. Gerald Carter, he kicked a ball 15 yards from their try line, and I thought he was trying to kick it to Bradford City. You've got to stop players that haven't got the requisite skills doing things that shouldn't be done, that don't benefit the side. So you've got to play with some control. And I'm sorry, if winning matches with the playing staff you have means playing it down the middle, you have to play it down the middle. For example, if we got £500,000 to spend, and we've had it a few weeks ago, Martin of Fire would have been signed by Bradford Northern. Because any man that didn't prepare to sign Martin of Fire, who was the quickest winger and scored a lot of tries in the game today, are foolish. Are foolish when they had the opportunity. But only 2 clubs got the money to buy him. And the team that should have bought him was Leeds. Because if they had done, Dougie Lawton would have been the fairy godmother, the king of the mountain. He'd have lasted forever. He'd have lasted forever by buying that one player. So, as I've said, if players come of that ability and that help, you've got to buy the best players at the time. Whoever you've got, if the best player becomes available and you have the next best player, you should get that player. You should get that player. It's unfortunate for the next best player, but then again I could maybe move him and make him the 3rd best player somewhere else.
Thank you, Peter. Yeah, the next one's a few one-liners really. Do you think that too many matches are played in a season from Ian Brook?
No. No. All bunker. We don't play our season of matches for the international setup, which is crap anyway. We've just played 2 years of football just to get a Great Britain side ready. When they pick it, they don't pick best men anyway. Rubbish.
Thank you, Peter. That's quite outspoken. Well done. The next one from Benny. From Benny. After a 6-week touchline ban for protesting on the field, would you do it again?
No, I wouldn't do it again because I was in breach of the laws of the game. Sorry, of the bylaws of the game. It states clearly you should not go on. And unfortunately I knew it when I went on. But what happened to us at Leeds, we lost the match because the same referee lost us the match. Sorry, he lost us the opportunity of winning the match by disallowing cordless try, which nobody in the world other than him thought it was a forward pass. It occurred at the same time in the match again, and the 4 points we required, if David had kicked the goal, would have put us in front, and it was very hard work trying to get back at Halifax. They got the edge on us at that time. It was hard work, and I thought he'd made a blow. I just had to make my presence felt.
Can I ask a question then, Peter? What did you say to him?
Well, quite frankly, I didn't say anything to him. That might surprise you, eh? I didn't say anything to him. As I walked onto the field, I knew that I was in the wrong and that I'd be reprimanded for it in some way or other. But I just had to make my presence felt, simply because if that game goes away from us, we are rock bottom of the league again, or in the second place clearly. And by just going to the field, the referee came towards me, and I was going to say, how can you disallow a try and give us a penalty? Even then, going to the field, I was still wrong in doing it, but I had to go on because the referee was taking the game away from us, not the advocate. And after that incident, the referee changed and favoured us. I would tell you, correct. He favoured us, which meant we won the game. So I apologised to my directors after the match for going on, but I said I had to do it, and it worked for us on this occasion. But clearly, it is only ever a one-off. But there were other reasons behind it as well, which are semi-important, which I had to explain to the board. But I'm pleased what the directors did at Eddie Quad. I'm pleased they gave me 6 matches, ban on the touchline side. Because when they were giving me the sentence and they said, and you will be suspended from the game temporarily until March 31st, and I thought he was going to say 1999. And it took me and David Hobbs all this time not to laugh at the ridiculous state of affairs that they put themselves in. Because I thought that after 20 years as a coach in this game, and not a blemish on my record, not one blemish on my record, that they had to punish me. When I thought they could have said, naughty boy Peter, you shouldn't have done that. What I did after they sentenced me to the 6 week, I said, well, now I have a complaint against the Rugby Football League, that you people in these headquarters running the game let this hang over me for 8 weeks, when the chairman expressed that they were only concerned with the first paragraph of the referee's report, because the referee went on in 2 further paragraphs to indict me with the police and everything else, which had nothing to do with the rugby league or the match. It had nothing to do with the rugby league. The chairman said it had nothing to do with the rugby league. Yet that referee wrote to the league about me. He said no about me going to the field, just like I didn't go to him and went off when he told me. But that was an indictment when I have not been accused of anything. I got a little letter from the superintendent of the police. The inspector cited me and wanted to take it forward and put me before the court. And if he had done, he'd have been made to look such a fool. I cannot believe it. But no one ever asked for my story. Everybody assumes that what this police inspector said was true. And I can honestly tell you, apart from one minute item of it, it was totally untrue. And before I finish, I'll just tell you what occurred at Halifax, just so you will know. Before the match, I joined Halifax Patriots behind our bench. Wherever I go, they collect behind the bench to have a word with me. A friendly word, and I talk to them. They ask me about their good players, and I tell them, and I talk to supporters. And when I came off the field after going on, one of the wags behind the dugout said to me, "That what a wasted journey, Foxy." And another guy said, "You're not going to win this one, Foxy. That's not going to change this referee's mind. He's knocked you this time." I said, "It's all right for you, but he did that 2 weeks ago. At Leeds, I said, he lost us the match, but I can see you don't came, they're all cheering me." So I sat down. Now that is what went off. And this police inspector has been all round the country trying to get players and people to say that I gave them the two fingers and what abusive to them, and he can't find anybody. If one wanted to have done that, no way made. I do wave my hands, but there is no way made. He got the video, he studied it, there's no done video. He asked all his witnesses, so they dropped the case. And I haven't been accused of anything. Unless I'm accused of a public order offence, section 4, I don't know what it is. But I've never been accused of what I have done, and I've never had the chance to answer anybody. So I wrote a right long letter to the superintendent to tell him, after reading what my story is, he will know that the decision he's taken not to proceed any further was right.
I think that actually answered quite a lot of questions, but just a few more one-liners before we finish, and then I'll let you get yourself a drink because you work very hard. From Hannah Walker, should TV be able to determine the kick-off days and times?
Oh yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, no question.
Good. From Lorraine, name your all-time greatest team, or that played for Bradford Northern since you came.
I can't do that. I have so many players that I'd leave out that were great players, I'd get murdered.
Yeah.
That's the one fatal thing to do. But I will tell you one thing. Of all the players that's played for me, they said I was a defensive coach when I was at Bradford Northern. We, for 6 years out of the 8 when I was here, had the best defensive record in the game. The only reason we had the best defensive record in the game at that time wasn't only because we got everybody tackling when Jimmy Thompson came. It's because we had the greatest defensive fullback I've ever seen in my life, Keith Mumby. He was absolutely magnificent.
Yeah,
people couldn't score against us. And I had the reputation of being a great defensive coach. Bloody hell, he doesn't know what a favour he's done with that kid. But he was the greatest. And he would certainly be my fullback. But I don't want to go any further with players.
Excellent, thank you. Super answer. Right, do you ever think Leeds will win anything?
Definitely. Oh, most emphatically. Leeds have won things in the past, they'll win things in the future. Mine still have to have a lot of luck to do it, but that's why they call it Leeds.
What's your best ever signing then?
The best ever, that's a difficult one. There's millions. No, it wasn't Ellery Hanley. Not by a long way. Not by a long way. It depends on the time and the moment, what your requirements are at that time. You decide a player that just does it for you and gets you either out of a big hole, or wins you a trophy. And there's been so many players that I've signed. It's remarkable that, to my knowledge, and they keep telling me, there's only 2 players I've ever signed twice, and that were Jeff Gratian and Graham Idle. Graham Idle then asked to leave and went to Hunslet when we got the record score. He played against us, Graham, and he reminded me the other week that he regretted leaving us. I said, well, if I can't trust the best in the business, and the only man to ever signed it twice in their career, and I still wants to leave, there's something up with it. But I can't tell you which my best ever signing was. I've made so many good signings. There's so many players that I didn't sign, that I'd like to sign. I'd have liked to sign. If I'd have got my wallet, I'd have read them out to you. There's players I wanted to sign, but I didn't get the opportunity to sign. There's certainly plenty of them. That's probably the best thing at the time when I wanted them.
Okay, Peter, thank you very much. The next one, what's the best try you've ever seen?
The best try I've ever seen. I've seen some magnificent tries. I don't think I can...
It's not the Hanley one in the 80s.
No. That was simply a man breaking a break and run. I've seen that a million times and played of that.
About the Richard Francis one.
Richard here?
Well, actually, it was awarded to Paul Medley, who was a yard away.
So was Richard.
But the remarkable thing, we were allowed a try that didn't count in the game. If that had been allowed to win a semi-final of the cup, a semi-final of the cup would have got away with it, I'd have been highly delighted. Because when you get them for note, it doesn't matter. You know, it doesn't matter, it was irrelevant. He made sure we didn't get any more, didn't he?
Well, what changes do you think the game needs?
Well, I think that's difficult. I think we've gone through a lot of changes, and there's...
The one most important change then? What do you think that would be?
Well, I'd resort to one man tackling another man could take the ball. But if it were a 2 or 3 man tackle that could not take the ball. This business today of stealing the ball under any circumstances is not right, is wrong. Diabolically it's wrong, because players drop it, throw it away, deliberately, let somebody take it out of their hands. And even some of our players I've heard say, what you should do to let him take a ball. I said no, you must not do that, because if you do, you could do it at a vital time and the referee not award you the penalty anyway, and so 2 wrongs don't make a right. And I firmly believe you must not cheat at this game. I don't believe in players or anybody cheating at this game. Play within the rules and the laws of the game and play them tight if you like to get an advantage, but you must never cheat, because if you do, the referee will catch you in the semi-final of the cup, in the last minute of the game. He'll give a penalty and you'll lose the match and not go to Wembley when you might have deserved to go, and that's when he'll catch you cheating. Don't risk it, not just for that one chance. I've never believed in it. I'll tell you this, I've been robbed of a Wembley final. When I was with Leeds, unfortunately, we drew with Hull Kingston 24-24, and the referee Robin Whitfield allowed a try when the player dropped the ball from that height, and only one man publicly declared it, and that was Les Boyd, who was then coaching Warrington. He hit the press with it considerably, but it went nowhere. We have no redress against it. We lost the replay, and so we didn't go to Wembley. And that was a tragedy, because we were thoroughly the best side on that day.
Thank you, Peter. Just 2 more then. Do you object to players acknowledging their supporters as they leave the field? I think this has come from a few people.
No, I don't object. I think to applaud the supporters when they can for their support, when it's been generous support, it's commendable.
Do you think then we could instigate that as...
No, I don't believe that should be purposely instigated as well, but as a reaction in occasional matches. And I wouldn't say if the lads have played if the lads have played poorly, we've lost, and they've got to acknowledge the crowd. Not all the crowd, applaud our players. Not even when we're winning do they applaud our players. So there is no way I'd compromise the players by allowing them to do that. If there's any, off-the-cuff reaction, somebody scored a try, whatever, and I have no objection to that, providing he doesn't do it before he puts the ball at line and make sure he scores a try first. But certainly showmanship to encourage, what I do believe is his players going to congratulate him. I think the players should congratulate each other whenever they do something well. They should give a word of encouragement and everything. And the reverse happens when the lad makes a mistake. Instead of standing there and moaning and groaning and turning away from the lad, they should have been the first man to recover and make the mistake not a mistake, and recover that mistake. And that is the thing that gets the players together, and they know then that they're playing with fellas that want the best for them and from them, and that's how you get it. And I certainly encourage lads talking to one another. Certainly.
Yeah. Thank you. Right. Tell you what, shall we just have a quick show of hands? How many of you in the room feel that the players should acknowledge you? How many? Put up your hands. About, what, 16.5% there.
Well, what I'd like to say to supporters is this. There's one thing a player will hear. I don't care how many supporters in the ground. He will hear the knocker shout abuse at him. The player will hear that no matter, because you name him. You name the player you dislike, or he's not one of your favourites. Now I'll tell you another thing, and I know you won't agree with me, or perhaps some of you will. You have no right to abuse these players on this field. I don't care how much money you've paid to come and watch. You've come and watched for these players to try to entertain you, and it doesn't always work. But don't ever think or say that the player hasn't given of his best. He may not have played well. He'll have put his heart into it as much as he can, and he can have a bad day. But don't you ever say to me and abuse my players, because I'm on their side. Now, I never abuse my players publicly. I can criticise them to some extent as a team when we haven't done what we should have done, but I don't abuse any individual players at all, because I don't believe that I've got a right. I can only be tempered with them. And I always tell them, don't ever chat back to me. Don't ever say anything back to me. If you think I'm wrong, don't say anything back to me, because you'll suffer at the height of all the tension and pressure. But if you think I'm wrong, or if you know I'm wrong, don't challenge me in front of all these other players, because I said something to you. Think of what I've said and done. Think of this for your benefit, because it'll all be for the team's benefit, if not for yours. And if at the end of the day you still think I'm wrong, come to me, take me up on it, at a quiet moment when you've thought about it and I've had time to think about it, and we'll discuss it, and we'll come. And I'm the first guy that can say I'm sorry. But I tell you this, very, very rarely have I ever had to say I'm sorry. Very, very rarely have I had to say I'm sorry. Because at the height of the moment in the tension, there's nobody can think as clear as I can about rugby league football. I know why it's happened. I know why he's done it. He'll not know himself, but I know why he's done it. But I don't allow supporters, and I don't believe you've got a right to abuse the players. You can have your opinions, you can discuss your thoughts, and you can ask questions, and you can try to find the answers, but you're making assumptions. And if you don't like him, you'll be a lot more severe in your criticism, and you'll definitely be unfair in whatever you're thinking. You're definitely unfair. But there's no reason why anybody can't talk to me. But to ask me, why is this player not... Just, imagine. The question you could put, why did you play this player? And why didn't you pick him? And why did you play... Because if you all sat down to pick the team, you'd have your own favourite idea. I've got my favourite idea. But my favourite idea is not based upon who I like. It's based upon who do I think ought to be in against this opposition at this particular match for this particular reason. And I can tell you why. Not that I will, because it wouldn't make all of you happy anyway if I did. Because you disagree because of your own personal prejudices. The only thing you can ever do, and I'm sorry, you'll not get the chance, is being my job.
Thank you, Peter. Ladies and gentlemen, Peter Potts. Thank you very much, Peter Potts. Thank you. Excellent. Thank you. Right, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, good afternoon. Welcome to Thrum Hall and Bradford Northern once again on the Cup Trail this afternoon. It's the third round of the Silk Challenge Cup. One or two interesting team selections this afternoon by Peter Fox. The Bradford team, number 1 Ian Wilkinson, number 2 Jedel Caudle, number 3 Daddle Shelford, number 4 Tony Anderson, number 5 Richard Francis, number 6 Tony Marchant, at number 7 Neil Summers, number 8 is Craig Richards coming in for the injured Jeff Gratian, number 9 Brian Noble, number 10 John Hamer, number 11 David Hobbs, 12 Paul Medley, and at number 13 Carl Fairbank, number 14 Brett Eaty, and the big surprise of the afternoon, David Croft coming in at number 15. And the Halifax team, number 1 Dave Watson, number 2 Henry Sharp, number 3 Warren Wilson, number 4 Greg Austin, number 5 Mark Preston, number 6 Jimmy Irvin, number 7 Chris Robinson, the Bradford lad from Dudley Hill, number 8 Carl Harrison, number 9 Roy Southernwood, number 10 Adam Fogarty, number 11 Gary Lord, number 12 John Fieldhouse, and at number 13 Greg Pearce. At number 14 Rob Hutchinson, and at number 15 Richard Milner. Well, David Hobbs winning the toss here at Thrum Hall this afternoon and electing to play to the far end of the ground, the notorious slope here at Halifax in this bottom corner just underneath our commentary position, and obviously Bradford Northern hoping to use that in the second half when the two teams start to get a little bit more tired. But it's Halifax now with starting this third round of the Silk Cup Challenge Cup. Ball well taken there by Neil Summers as Carl Fairbank, but 2 or 3 Halifax players very, very quickly there on Fairbank. Ian Wilkinson looking to drive out, but the Halifax defence up very, very quickly. Mistake there by Craig Richards, dropping that ball. So Halifax now in an attacking position. There's a knock-on given there by the referee, well spotted by referee Mr. Smith from Castleford. So a little bit of a let-off there for Bradford Northern. Craig Richards just on that little dummy run, but the ball going to ground. But as I say, a good let-off there for Bradford Northern. So referee just having a word with the front rows there. Neil Summers gets the ball in, that's out behind the hooker's feet. As the ball out to Ian Wilkinson. Wilkinson straightens up, but second row pairing there out very, very quickly for Halifax of Gary Lord and the number 13 Greg Pearce getting across to Wilkinson. John Hamer taking the drive up there, but a good tackle on John Hamer by Adam Fogarty. Craig Richards again getting a bit of a gallop up, but Richards managing to get out of the clutches of one, but finally goes down under 3 or 4 Halifax players. Neil Summers gets the ball out to Fairbank, but Fairbank just held there, trying to go round the outside of his man. David Hobbs with the ball, puts a long kick down into the Halifax half of the field, but Northern playing against the wind this afternoon as Halifax bring the ball away with Mark Preston, but Preston's brought down by Tony Marchant on the halfway line, just short of the halfway line in the Halifax half there. So the Halifax forwards coming running with Carl Harrison there. Harrison's well met. Skipper for the day in the absence of Paul Harking, out of favour. The young number 7 Chris Robinson had 2 man of the match awards in his last 2 matches, signed from Dudley Hill, but it's Halifax putting the ball down into this bottom corners. Richard Francis hoping it would go dead, but Francis there trying to go between 2, but he's well tackled. Wilkinson from the acting halfback steps out of one, but back into the clutches there of the front row pairing of Harrison and Fogarty. Fairbank on the short side, but both packs testing one another out in these opening stages of this third round of the Silk Cut Challenge Cup, and of course the semi-finals looming, and it's just one match away from Wembley. It's David Hobbs puts the boot to the ball once again into the Halifax half of the field, but Dave Watson takes the ball easily, but steps out of the tackle there off Paul Medley, but finally brought down on the halfway line. Halifax looking to move the ball out. Fogarty there looking for a supporting play, but nobody coming, and losing that ball there, getting to his feet, so referee on the spot there. The Halifax players appealing that the ball was hooped out by a Bradford player, but referee Mr. Smith calling a scrum just inside the Bradford half of the field. So Neil Summers gets the ball in, out to Wilkinson. Wilkinson looking to make the half break, but 2 or 3 Halifax players very, very quickly round Ian Wilkinson there. Carl Fairbank, Bradford not really running from deep as yet, lying a little bit flat. As I say, the forwards testing one another out as John Hamer comes in on the little switch reverse pass there, but he's brought down on the halfway line. Summers with the little run round Medley, but Medley, everybody at 6s and 7s there. Medley not really coming running with any force, and he's brought down. Referee awarding a penalty there to Bradford Northern. John Fieldhouse, the big gingerhead, number 12 of Halifax, adjudged to be holding Paul Medley down there, so a chance for David Hobbs against quite a stiff breeze that's got up here at Thrum Hall. It's Neil Summers who pops the ball into touch, so Summers taking over the kicking role from the penalties this afternoon. Hobbs gets the ball on to Hamer, but Hamer's well tackled. Craig Richards. Peter Fox talking to Craig Richards in the dressing room prior to the kick-off, saying he wants a good work rate from Big Craig this afternoon, as Bradford Northern with the switch on. Summers, good little run. Summers steps out of one. Brian Noble up there in support, but Summers just not managing to get that ball out as Bradford look to move the ball out now, but Wilkinson flips the ball on to David Hobbs, out to Tony Marchant, but Marchant's pulled down. Bradford lying that little bit flat as David Hobbs with a good pass over the top to Anderson. Anderson slices through, and Anderson just pulled down 5 yards short in that corner. Richard Francis had gone on the inside of him as David Hobbs puts the little grubber kick in, but that ball knocked on by a Halifax player, but referee saying no knock on, the ball went back, so Halifax now looking to bring the ball away, but Jedel Caudle penalised there for the tackle on the Halifax player. So a chance for Halifax to relieve the pressure on the line, just finding touch on the 25, so it'd be 6 tackles, but Tony Anderson there, a very, very promising run down that far side, and just couldn't get the ball inside to the supporting Richard Francis, so the chance gone for Bradford Northern. Halifax with the long ball out to Carl Harrison. Harrison stepping out of one tackle, a good bullocking run there by Carl Harrison. And once again the deep kick down into the Bradford half of the field, but that ball too strong and rolls over the dead ball line, but Halifax know this ground inside out. They know that there's this slope at this bottom corner as Bradford take the tap from the 25. Carl Fairbank back in the side after his trip to France last week with that victorious Great Britain side against the Francis. Brian Noble goes from acting halfback. Good 10-15 yards made there by Brian Noble. Spotted the gap as David Hobbs straighten up. Good pass by David Hobbs on to Craig Richards. Richards in full flight. Richards going for the corner, and a good tackle there by the fullback on Craig Richards, but Richards tried to brush Dave Watson off, but Bradford now on the attack with Summers, and straight away a penalty there to Bradford Northern. Neil Summers there was impeded. And players running in from all sides. This we don't want to see in rugby league. Tempers boiling up. But a splendid run there by Craig Richards, and the penalty was awarded to Bradford Northern for offside. It looked a little bit of an infringement there between Neil Summers, but referees finally got the players sorted out. So the referee, let's have a look who he's going to call out. It looks like just having a quiet word, just settling everybody down. And it's Chris Robinson that's on the floor, the scrum half for Halifax. And Touches there, just giving his side of the story to the referee. As we say, the penalty was already awarded to Bradford Northern for offside prior to that little melee breaking out. And the referee pulling the Halifax player out. Pulling the scrum half out, the number 7, just having a word with him. Well, quite a lengthy stoppage here until referee Mr. Smith from Castleford just gives the lecture to the Halifax player and sticks by his original decision of awarding that penalty to Bradford Northern. Oh, Neil Summers. Looks like Bradford are going to take a tap of this ball. Summers, the little run round with Bradford Northern. And Craig Richards still going. Good strong running there by Craig Richards as 3 or 4 Halifax players bring him to ground. John Hamer driving towards the post, driving towards that Halifax try line, but good tackling by Halifax, the forwards. David Hobbs lays the ball off, and that ball going to ground, and the Halifax player there falling on that loose ball. So the attacking position to Bradford Northern gone as Halifax look to bring the ball away now with these big forwards, the big number 8 Harrison, the number 10 Adam Fogarty. So up to the 25. Bradford's tackling up to it in this early opening 10 minutes of the game. 4 tackles gone now for Halifax, so probably we'll see the ball coming down the field again. The long kick again down into this corner with the slope, but Ian Wilkinson back, and 4, 5, virtually the whole of the Halifax team up there very, very quickly. On to Ian Wilkinson. Richard Francis from the acting halfback tries to go round his man, but Greg Pearce hauls him down. Noble from the acting halfback. Bradford looking to make yards, trying to get out of this 25. David Hobbs straightens up to the 25. Neil Summers puts the boot to the ball, makes the fullback there, Dave Watson, turn and chase the ball. Picks the ball up safely in his own 25, but good following up there by Neil Summers, the kicker of that ball. Brings Dave Watson down as Halifax going across the centre of the park, and a high tackle there by Tony Marchant. Referee looks as though he's going for the card, and that's a red card, so Tony Marchant sent off the park for a high tackle. The tackle didn't look too bad, but That's obviously putting pressure now on Bradford Northern with 12 men. Northern obviously will have to ring the changes now. Tony Anderson coming in at 6. So a little bit of a harsh decision there by the referee, but Bradford Northern now 13 minutes gone on the clock, down to 12 men with the dismissal there of Tony Marchant. Oh, Halifax fine touch from the free kick on the halfway line. As Carl Fairbank, good strong tackle, Fairbank in very, very quickly there on Adam Fogarty. Halifax looking to move this ball about, but penned on the halfway line. Fieldhouse from the acting halfback. And Halifax moving the ball about now as Halifax get the ball out. The kick infield, the cross kick infield as Jedel Cordell just keeps an eye on that ball and watches it goes dead, but a good little kick there by Henry Sharp, another ex-Bradford lad, a Dudley Hill player, as Bradford get the game underway with Daryl Shelford. Forwards just taking that first drive up and ball little switch round the play of the ball there as Carl Fairbank came bursting onto the ball, but he's well met as David Hobbs puts a good long kick down the field. Mark Preston chasing that ball, but the ball just not rolling far enough as Preston comes across the centre of the post, but a good tackle there by Neil Summers. Halifax get the ball out up to the 25. Fieldhouse from the acting halfback. It's Halifax once again moving this ball out with the extra men as referee there spotting a forward pass. The pass from Carl Harrison. Referee right on the spot, saw that the ball travelled forward, so down we go to scrum just inside the Halifax half of the field. Paul Medley come out into the centre, so Bradford just packing sixes. Ian Wilkinson knocks one off, looks to knock another off. Wilkinson stepping out of 2-3 tackles there, a good strong run by Ian Wilkinson as Neil Summers on to Carl Fairbank. Fairbank turning his back, looking to offload, but the Halifax forwards there doing a good job of smothering man and ball as John Hamer takes the drive up and a high tackle there on John Hamer. So referee decision here, the Bradford players pointing to the sideline as John Hamer took that high tackle there. And no action taken by the referee, but a chance for David Hobbs to open the scoring for Bradford Northern. The referee signalled to his 2 touch judges that David Hobbs is elected to go for goal. Well, John Hamer back on his feet there after a little bit of treatment from Marie with that high tackle, but David Hobbs with quite a stiff breeze that's getting up here now at Thrum Hall. David Hobbs, some 35 yards out, just to the right hand side of the post. Comes up now, strikes the ball well, and that ball just pulling out to the left hand side of the upright, and the ball going safely dead, so that'll be a drop out to Halifax on their own 25. And a flat bobbling kick there. The Halifax player just not getting hold of that ball right, spinning off the inside of his boot. Neil Summers picks the ball up. John Hamer driving in again. David Hobbs taking the drive up. And Neil Summers, good ball out to Paul Medley. Medley just ankle tap there. Northern looking to move the ball. Nice inside switch there by Tony Anderson to Daryl Shelford. But Shelford tackles the ball back to David Hobbs. As Hobbs puts the high kick into the Halifax box. Richard Francis very, very quickly up on that as Watson gets the ball away to the winger Henry Sharp. Sharp steps out of 2, 3 tackles there. Good relieving run there, but Dave Watson took that ball very, very well under a lot of pressure there as Halifax split the Bradford defence. And a good recovering tackle there by Carl Fairbank. But Halifax now on the attack, on the outside. The ball out to Mark Preston, but Preston just dropping that ball as the ball goes into touch. Preston shaped up to kick, but miskicked on the ball, tried to chip the ball through, but Halifax with the 13 men should be able to stretch this Bradford Northern defence down to 12 men. So Neil Summers feeds the ball in. Ball out to Ian Wilkinson. Wilkinson running straight. And a good cup tie atmosphere here at Thrum Hall as referee there spotting the forward pass. The pass from Neil Summers to Carl Fairbank. So that puts the pressure back on Bradford Northern now. It'd be Halifax to feed the scrum with Chris Robinson. Robinson gets the ball in, but elects to go on his own. Fieldhouse on the tilt. Fieldhouse manages to offload the ball to Fogarty. Fogarty striding out towards the line, but well tackled there by Daryl Shelford as Fax once again from the acting halfback there with Warren Wilson. And a bad mistake there. The ball popped out of the hands of the Halifax player, so Bradford once again. Brian Noble takes the tap quickly. Makes a good 10 yards. Jedel Cordell up there with him from that very, very quick tap. Anderson. Anderson puts a kick into the Halifax half of the field and finds touch. 10 yards inside the Halifax half of the field, but the advantage there going to Halifax. If Halifax to put the ball in, Bradford down to just 5 men in the pack. So we're not going to see the big push that we've had from Bradford Northern in previous matches at the scrum as Halifax work the ball out, looking to work the ball across the field. The ball offloaded there. Robinson gets the ball out. And once again, good strong running by Halifax, good support play. Robinson lays the ball off nicely. Gets the ball back from Fieldhouse, steps inside, but finally brought to ground by his opposing number there, Neil Summers. Little switch on with Carl Harrison. Harrison straightening up, coming towards the post on the 25 now. And Southernwood gets the ball out. Halifax with Fogarty, but Fogarty's finally brought to ground. Referee signals the 5th and last tackle, so the little chip kick going in there that accidentally came off a Bradford player. It's referee giving a knock on, and that should have been the handover in my book. It was on the sixth tackle, but referee judging that there was a knock on to Halifax. Oh, Neil Summers gets the ball in. Halifax with the push on, but Summers gets the ball out to Wilkinson. Wilkinson makes 5-10 yards. Daryl Shelford from the acting halfback up to the 25. John Hamer taking the drive up. Hamer just half burst the tackle there, but just couldn't offload the ball. David Hobbs on the short side. Hobbs flips the ball back inside to Neil Summers. Summers steps out of one, looking for supporting players, but nobody coming there to support Neil Summers on that half break. Tony Anderson. Anderson steps out of one, but he's brought down on the halfway line as referee Mr. Smith signals the fifth and last tackle for Bradford Northern. Carl Fairbank puts ball to boot. Not a renowned kicker of the ball, but finds touch midway between the halfway and the Halifax 25. Well, midway through this first half, it's still Halifax 0, Bradford Northern 0 in this third round of the Silkcut Challenge Cup. And of course, Northern down to 12 men, but weathered quite a little bit of pressure. There's once again the pack break-up with a little bit of argy-bargy there, but referee just settling the tempers down. Let's see who is pulling out. And it looks like Roy Sutherwood, the Halifax hooker, who's been signalled out by the referee for a lecture and giving a penalty to Bradford Northern there. Penalty for striking out there in the scrum. That was the referee's indication there, so chance for Northern now to mount another attack just short of the Halifax 25. Oh, Brian Noble takes the resultant tap. Gerald Caudle coming in then. That ball spinning out of Caudle's hands, but flipped back and well picked up by Paul Medley. Quite a hefty tackle there on Gerald Caudle that forced that ball out as John Hamer takes the drive up again. Drives towards the Halifax 25. Craig Richards running once again. Craig, big running game expected of him this afternoon by Peter Fox. Northern with the switch on. David Hobbs straightens up, looks to go towards the post, flips the ball out of the back door as Neil Summers. Summers looking to get that ball out, but fifth and last tackle for Bradford Northern again as Carl Fairbank chips the ball over the top, but safely taken there by Mark Preston on the Halifax wing. And Gerald Caudle in there very, very quickly. As Halifax now look to start to drive the ball out of their own 25. Fieldhouse, but Fieldhouse is well tackled there by Craig Richards. Halifax looking to flip the ball out. Jimmy Irvin there, but he's brought down as the ball goes back to Dave Watson. Watson puts the boot to the ball, but Ian Wilkinson traps the ball safely. Wilkinson sets off across the face of the Halifax defence there coming up, but Richie Francis takes the ball from acting halfback. He's well tackled by Adam Fogarty. Hamer. Summers with the long ball out, flips the ball inside to Medley. Medley shrugs one tackle off, and Medley in the clear there, but referee already blown the whistle there for a high tackle on Paul Medley as Medley ducked under the failing arm there of the Halifax player. Looks like Gary Lord, who's just getting the warning from the referee. No, it was Jimmy Irving, the standoff. Paul Medley had broken through into the clear there and was heading for the try line when referee blew his whistle, and the penalty awarded on the halfway line to Bradford Northern. So Halifax there with 2 cautions, 4 high tackles from the referee, Tony Marchant. No further part to play in this game for a high tackle, but Mr. Smith as Bradford Northern now once again take the drive up with John Hamer. Hamer looking to duck underneath, but he's brought down on the 25. Craig Richards getting a good run up, but straight into the waiting arms there off Carl Harrison. Hobbs with the switch once again, but that ball there touching the boot off Tony Anderson, going to ground, and little planned move there, obviously not coming off as Halifax get possession, and Halifax look to move this ball out, but good tackle there by Paul Medley. So a big tackling stint required by Bradford Northern. Forward pass there, the pass to John Fieldhouse. Just that little bit too late as Fieldhouse came bursting on. Referee on the spot there to see the forward pass, so it's scrummed down on the Halifax 25. Summers gets the ball in again. Summers straightening up. Looks to sell the dummy, but loose forward and second row pairing very, very quickly out of the pack. Hobbs taking the drive up. Hobbs looking to spin, turn his back, looking for a supporting player, but he goes down. Carl Fairbank. Fairbank still stood up. Trying to offload there, but and Neil Summers there, adjusts to have knocked on. Summers picked that ball up facing this end of the park, which hard to believe that was a knock on, and Neil Summers there just showing his disgust, slamming the ball down into the turf. So the attacking position to Bradford Northern gone once again as Halifax get the ball out of the scrum with Jimmy Irving, but a good tackle there on Irving by Tony Anderson. Anderson played here at Halifax for a number of years in that successful team that went to Wembley twice on the trot, and of course back on the Silk Challenge Cup trail this afternoon as referee gives a penalty there to Halifax. Holding down at the play the ball. So half an hour gone on the clock in this third round of the Silk Challenge Cup. It's still Halifax 0, Bradford Northern 0. Halifax up to the halfway line. Fogarty once again driving, but Bradford pack had to do a lot of tackling as Carl Harrison. A good tackle there by Neil Summers on Carl Harrison as Harrison was looking to offload, but Halifax moving the ball out now. Fullback Dave Watson coming in from fullback. This Aussie fullback strong gets the ball, and Halifax keep the ball going. And the number 3 there, Warren Wilson, electing to come inside, but big overlap there for Halifax and couldn't capitalise on it as Halifax looked to work the short side. Oh, Bradford under a lot of pressure now as Halifax fan the ball across the face of the post. Dummy soul there, and a good interception there by Jedel Caudle. Caudle saving the day there for Bradford Northern as Daniel Shelford takes that ball up, but a try-saving catch there by Jedel Caudle as Greg Austin trying to get that ball out to Mark Preston on the wing, and Caudle just coming back and intercepting, so saving the day for Bradford Northern, and a penalty there for the Halifax players, not being directly behind one another to play the ball, gives a chance for Bradford Northern to relieve a little bit more pressure on their own line. John Hamer takes the first drive up. Craig Richards, but Richards running straight into the waiting cover there as 2 or 3 Halifax players very, very quickly round Big Craig. Summers with a nice little dummy, but good tackle there by Carl Harrison on Summers. Made the half break at Summers, but just couldn't get through as John Hamer, first man in again. Hamer gone through a tremendous amount of work this afternoon as David Hobbs puts a long ball down into the Halifax 25, but Dave Watson back there very, very quickly. The ball out with Mark Preston. Preston coming across the post, but good tackle there by Tony Anderson. Halifax once again looking to move this ball about, but Bradford tackling machine up to it this afternoon in this first half. Coming up to 5 minutes to half time as Wilson spins round, breaks out of the tackle of Medley, but Medley gets him at the second attempt. Harrison, nice little sleight of handball there, out to Robinson, but Robinson's brought down on the halfway line by Daryl Shelford. Halifax once again moving this ball out. The dummy again by Austin, and Austin dragged into touch. A good tackle by Ian Wilkinson as Austin tried to sell the dummy there. Stepped inside, and Ian Wilkinson, good covering work across, and bundled Greg Austin into touch. And players just receiving attention there. It looks like David Hobbs that's got a bit of a bang. Is it David Hobbs, or could be Paul Medley? No, Medley's got the number 11 on, so it's David Hobbs who's just receiving a little bit of attention there. And also a Halifax player. So down we go to scrum. It'll be Neil Summers to feed the scrum for Bradford Northern after that good tackle by Ian Wilkinson as Gerald Caudle coming in from the wing. Caudle trying to step out of the tackle, but 3 Halifax players very, very quickly on top of him. Summers on to Wilkinson. Wilkinson trying to step inside. Well tackled there by Adam Fogarty as Carl Fairbank. Fairbank slips the ball to Hamer. Hamer just not being able to break that final tackle to get in the clears. Craig Richards sets off down the far side, gets the ball out, but that ball not being able to be picked up by Daryl Shelford, and the ball going into touch. Well, some 4 minutes to go on our watch. There was that little stoppage when the referee pulled the players up, but referee saying the ball coming out the same way. So down we go to scrum again. It looks like Halifax about to make a substitution. The number 9 Roy Suttonwood. Neil Summers very, very quickly there up on Robinson. Halifax once again looking to work this ball out. Players a little bit flat there, not expecting that ball, and Fogarty, but Fogarty's well tackled there by Carl Fairbank. A good hit by Carl Fairbank. And Halifax with the long ball out, electing to come inside, gets the ball to Dave Watson. Watson, this revelation at fullback since Roger Wilmwood moved him to fullback, among the leading try scorers at the moment. And a good run there by Henry Sharp, picking that ball up loosely, but referee signalling the fifth and last tackle as Halifax chip the ball into the corner, but that's going to find touch just midway between the try line and the Bradford Northern 25. And Halifax finally make the substitution. Number 9, Roy Southernwood going off. And the number 15, Richard Milner, coming onto the park and going into that hooking spot. But the ball out with Bradford Northern again as Ian Wilkinson straightens up there, but just finally pulled down by Greg Pearce. Carl Fairbank takes the drive up. Fairbank slips the ball inside to Summers, but Summers just couldn't get away there from the cover. John Hamer, but nowhere to go there through for John with Fieldhouse and Harrison. Tony Anderson puts the long kick in down, but that's well taken by Dave Watson as Watson looks to come outside. Gets the ball to Sharp coming inside. He's finally brought down on the halfway line there by Daddle Shelford as Fax once again, good supporting play by Halifax. Richard Milner getting his first touch of the ball there as once again the Halifax players going round and round. Fogarty straight away there, well met by Carl Fairbank. That's Halifax moving this ball out wide again. They've got the extra man, the ball out to Mark Preston. But Preston comes back inside and he's brought down by David Hobbs. 4 tackles gone now for Halifax's Fieldhouse. It's the ball out. But number 11, Gary Lord, going down as fifth and last tackle signal by the referee. And Halifax to put the ball into the bottom corner and finding touch just 10 yards from the Bradford Northern try line as 40 minutes up on our stopwatch now, so there's just that short stoppage. We're into injury time now, and the Bradford pack looking a little bit tired. Had a big tackling stint to do this afternoon as the Bradford Northern supporters at this end get behind the team as Summers gets the ball out from the scrum. Ian will